Good evening. Hi. Hello, Hamilton friends. I went to McMaster, so I have good memories. So this will always be one of my homes. Thank you so much for coming out tonight to this Independent Street Checks Review consultation, community consultation. It is really important that members of the community come out to have their say in this conversation, and we just want to acknowledge you. I want to acknowledge the elders in the room. Thank you for being here, for your wisdom, and also the youth. I notice there's quite a bit of youth in the room, and I just want to acknowledge that that's so important to us, so thank you for being here. We want to hear your voice. Yep. I also want to acknowledge Councillors Terry Whitehead and Matthew Green for being here. Thank you so much. And Police Board members Donald McVicker and Walt Jishinowitz. Thank you for being here. So tonight really is about hearing from you. We will be brief in our introductions, and we will get right into an opportunity for you to be heard and have conversations at your table, and then bring that conversation, report back to the large group. And you will notice that members of the team are around the room with white tags. So anybody you see with this white tag is a member of the Street Checks Carding Review team. And you can ask them questions. They might join your table. They may be moving around, coming and going, taking notes. But if you don't see us taking notes, not to worry. We have notes being taken, it's being recorded so that we can refer back later in a precise way. The other thing is that there are headsets if you want to, if you need French translation, okay? So I believe they're by our sound guys over there in that corner. You can get a headset, or even if you have hearing impairment and it would just be easier for you to listen through the headsets, please feel free to go and access a headset as well, okay? So I'm gonna invite Justice Tulloch to the podium to welcome you formally. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kike, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming out. As Kike has indicated, we're here to have a conversation. We're here to hear from you here in Hamilton. I was here about a year and a half ago, and I can indicate on the last review that we conducted, your input was extremely valuable to that entire process. And as a result of that, we made recommendations which largely reflected what we heard from consultations such as this one, and is now reflected in legislation which was passed back in early March. So I want to thank all of you here in Hamilton as a community, and you should give yourself some credit. Okay, thank you. Now, as you've heard, my name is Michael Tulloch. I'm a judge who sits on the Court of Appeal. Before I begin with my comments, I must first acknowledge that we're on the land of the traditional territory of a number of First Nations. And these include the Anishinaabe, my diction's a little bit off tonight, but anyway, the Anishinaabe, right? The Haudenosaunee, and the Iroquois, as well as the Huron-Wendat, the Ojibwa, Chippewa peoples, as well as the Métis and the Inuit. Now, I strongly believe that by acknowledging this traditional territory, we're recognizing and respecting the First Peoples of this country, and the fact that this territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties. This recognition and acknowledgement is key to any relationship and reconciliation going forward. Now, I'm here this evening in the capacity of an independent reviewer of the new regulation passed by the Ontario government in 2016, which was put in place to regulate the police practice of street checks, and more specifically, which was intended to limit or ban the arbitrary interaction of some police officers with members of the public for the sole purpose of collecting their personal identifying information. It's a practice generically called carding. I am an independent reviewer, which means my position is independent of government as well as independent of the police. As indicated, I was asked by the Ontario government to conduct this independent review, and this was back on June 7th, 2017. In this capacity, I will be reviewing the content of the regulation to see whether it reflects the important goal of ensuring bias-free police community interactions, as well that police and public interactions are consistent and conducted in a way that promotes public trust and confidence, while at the same time respecting individual rights and civil liberties. I will also be reviewing the regulation with a view to determine whether or not police services, chiefs, and police services boards are in compliance with its terms and are following it. I will be conducting a very comprehensive review of this regulation, and in order to do this, I have put together a team of professionals to assist me in this regard, a number of whom are here this evening, who, as you've heard, are wearing tags like the one that I have. Now, since September, we've had numerous consultations throughout the province, the north as well as other parts of Ontario. And now we've embarked on our public consultations. Today's consultation in Hamilton marks the 6th of 12 public consultations throughout the province of Ontario. I intend to draw on what I've been learning from these consultations to formulate a report with recommendations on the regulation. This report will be submitted to the government on November 30th, 2018, and will be made available to the public no later than January the 1st, 2019. By way of background, the regulation is intended to govern the police and public interaction. When the police is seeking to obtain a person's identifying information in situations where a legal statutory law, such as the Highway Traffic Act or the Trespasser Property Act, does not obligate the citizen to give the police his or her information, or where a person is not being investigated for a specific crime or is under legal arrest. So there are situations where individuals are legally obliged to give their identifying information to the police if there is statutory authority that governs. But in other situations, then the regulation applies. The regulation outlines what an officer must do if they ask for your identifying information. The regulation is not intended to stop the police from speaking with the public or the public from speaking with the police. The regulation is intended to stop the police from randomly and arbitrarily collecting personal information from members of the public who they speak with. The regulation also provides information and guidelines on the storage of information that comes from street checks. As well, it provides the mandatory training for all police on the new rules, the development of policies and procedures by police services, as well as police services boards, and the public reporting requirements by the police services. Now, with that background in mind, I look forward to this evening's discussion. I look forward to hearing from you. I ask that you feel free to speak openly and candidly about your experiences. And I want to emphasize once again that this review is fully independent, and we're here not as part of the government of Ontario, but we're here to hear from you as citizens, and your input will be instrumental in whatever recommendations that will be going forward. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to do a quick run-through of the logistics for this evening. Mais avant que je commence, je vais faire une petite annonce en français. Si vous désirez un service d'interprétation vers le français, munissez-vous des écouteurs. Vous les trouverez à l'arrière de la salle, près de la cabine où travaille notre interprète Violaine. Bonjour, Violaine. So, thank you all for coming this evening. I'm just going to go through what this evening will look like for you and give you a brief idea, and then we're going to get right into the discussions. So as you know, as Justice Tulloch mentioned, we're doing public consultations, and this is our 6th one. We're traveling right across the province, and it's been really great to get out and hear from the community and meet people. So thank you again for coming out this evening. Excellent food. Oh, I'm glad you had, and there's still more, so please feel free to go get seconds. Part of our consultations is a community survey. So if you go on our website, you'll see a pop-up come up, and you're welcome to take the survey. It's also another way that we're doing consultations and gathering really specific data on the regulation and on people's experiences. So please go to our website, which is www.streetchecksreview.ca. And as soon as you get there, you'll see the screen, and it'll pop up, and you can take the survey. And so the goal of this evening really is to hear from you and to hear your feedback and your recommendations into this entire process. We're reviewing a number of things, and part of it is, part of that includes community feedback. So we want to know what your experiences have been, what's the impact of the regulation been, how are you finding, what are your recommendations for data collection and for receipts, and a lot of things. You'll see on your tables, there's a guide, and there's also a questionnaire, and it kind of goes through the regulation on things that we would like your feedback on. And just as a disclaimer, the review, we're not looking at individual cases. So while you might have a story to share with us, a personal story, we would love it if you were able to share that with us. But as a review team, we're not actually dealing with or trying to resolve individual cases. That's for you to be able to take up with whatever police service that you would like to be able to deal with. Sorry, I'm just running through really quick. Well, I'll get to your question after. So just so you know, there aren't any, we're not looking at individual cases. So the way that this works, as soon as I sit down, we're basically going to get right into the consultation part. So if you're sitting at a table and it's kind of empty, I'm not sure, some of the ladies at the back, if you want to join a table, really it's a group exercise. And so it's going through the questions, working through them, and if you could appoint a person at your table to take notes and then report back at the end. We'll have about 45 minutes to an hour for you to all discuss, and then we'll leave some time at the end for each table to report back to Justice Tulloch, who will be up at the front here taking notes on everything that's being said. And just so you know, we are on social media. We're posting under the hashtag StreetChecks. So you can go on our Facebook page. Actually, this is being live streamed on Facebook Live. So Dylan, who's on the riser with the camera, you wave, Dylan, hi. So he's managing our Facebook stream. So that's where the camera is. If you don't want to be on camera, it's right there. Please avoid the camera. But we're also going to be taking pictures. So you'll see members of our team with the name tags will be around taking pictures because we're tweeting, and we've got it on Instagram and up on Facebook as well. If you see us and you don't want your photo taken, not an issue at all. Just let us know, and we'll move on. But if you want to see what it is that we're posting or tweeting about, you can go on any one of our pages. So there's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And again, you can go to our website for any information on the upcoming consultations or anything to do with the review to get more information. And if you want to send information to us, if you feel that there was stuff that you still wanted to say, didn't get a chance to, you want to send us an email, or perhaps you just need some more time to think through some of your thoughts, feel free to send us an email at info@streetchecksreview.ca. And that's it. Thank you so much, and have a great evening. We're not doing, can this?
I just want to ask you a question. I'm not part of the consultation. I have some individual concerns with respect to carding and budgeting. They are intertwined. With that one, am I allowed to express my views independently?
So what you can do is send us an email with whatever it is that you have.
Chief Justice knows I have done.
So send us all of the information that you have.
Address it after, when everybody else is being addressed.
So yeah, so at the end, we are going to do a report back portion, and people will have the chance to, to speak at the table. And if there's anything extra, feel free to send us an email. We'll receive your documentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Okay, so for this process, as Danielle said, if you would sort of populate tables so that they're kind of full and we can have a sort of a robust conversation, there is a sheet on your tables that looks like this. I know you really can't see this very closely. There's an engagement guide. So if you want to just sort of lift the pertinent questions out of the engagement guide, it is this single sheet that's two-sided, right? Probably pick someone to kind of facilitate the conversation at the table, and someone to take notes, and also someone who will present, right? And you have 50 minutes, 50. So it's 6:30 now. So at about 7:20, I'll give you like a 2-minute warning, okay? And then we'll start the report backs. That good? Everybody's good? Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. Hopefully you've had enough time for everyone to have their say. And if I can remind you, thank you so much. Just going to remind you of a couple things. One is that now that we've gone through the process of the conversation, hi, hello. I just want to remind you that you can go onto our website and offer more feedback. So if you, for whatever reason, don't feel like you were heard, or you have more to say, or whatever, the website information is here behind me, and we'd love to hear from you. The other thing I want to remind you of is that that Justice Tulloch is an independent reviewer. So this is not connected to the police, any particular police service at all. And it is not connected to any particular government. So I just want to remind the room of that. As you can see, there's a lot of people here, and there are a lot of tables. And I want to be as close to our time that we ought to be finished as possible while hearing from everyone. So how I've done that typically up till now is asked one person from each table to represent the table, right, by sharing what was discussed, and working in around the 3-minute frame. So for the report back, I get that that means that not everything you said will get said in detail. We would love to take your notes. So like members of our team, so that's the people with the white tags, will come around and collect the notes. So if you don't get to say everything, we will still note everything. Is that fair? Is that cool? Okay, awesome. So I think we're going to start on this side, and we're going to move across the room, if that's okay. And I'm just going to ask, just for the sake of everyone being able to hear, if it's possible to only have one conversation happening at one, or one person talking at a time. That's going to make the process happen a bit better and more quickly. Okay? Thank you so much. So Dave, who has the microphone, he's the microphone runner, and when he hands the microphone over to someone, they have the floor. Is that fair? And then, unless I interrupt them, of course, right? So I'm the timekeeper. I will give you a yellow card when you're at about 20 to 30 seconds left, and that'll give you a sense of time to wrap up. Is that fair? Awesome, thank you. Dave?
So I think we had a really fruitful and meandering conversation. So if I could sum it up, and we were positioned differently in the community, which I think contributed to sometimes the intensity of the conversation. I think at the end of the day, we talked about perception and how those perceptions may be formed by the color of our skin, our class background, the perceptions people may have of us, our histories, the stories we tell our children, the stories that continue to resonate with our kids and may create fear on the part of some children. So at the end of the day, it was just like, okay, this is a conversation around different perceptions, I think rooted in various forms of power and privilege, but a real sense on the part of some people who are rooted in the community that while we've got lots of rules and regulations and policies, that we've got lots of documentation, that perhaps the reality on the ground is not changing. So documentations have changed, attitudes have not, systems have not. Some of those comments that I'm making are actually filtered through my own perceptions too about
Thank
things.
you for saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have so much more time as a table, so did you want to add anything?
I think, my name is Marlene Thomas. I believe Vilma covered it very well. However, as I kept saying, it starts from scratch. That's the reason why we have street checks and carding, because no one listened. As she spoke about rules, regulations, policies, etc., it's only on paper. Implementation is where it's at. And once it's not implemented by the bodies that need to implement it, we're going nowhere, and we'll be back here again next year, a few months from now. Me personally, I'm tired of sitting in rooms filled with people. We all have to do our part, yes, but the rules and regulations, the Human Rights Code, it have to be followed and implemented, and we'll be all right. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you.
We love you, Auntie Marlene.
Thank you.
Well, we have a lot of points, but I think there's some really important ones that came up at the end of our conversation. We're very concerned about how people are going to get the new regulation, how they're going to see it, how they're going to become aware of it. Not everybody knew that there was an event happening tonight. It maybe needs to be marketed better. But one of the ways that we can ensure that that regulation gets out there is that when the police give a receipt, they also give a copy of the regulation to the people. That would be really that they're giving a receipt to. These 2 points were really important. How do officers communicate effectively and respectfully with people who have disabilities? And the tone when they're doing that. And this one also spoke to my heart. You know, we're all in different economic places, and sometimes we're not as aware. Police need more sensitivity training when potentially confronting someone in the poverty community who may be hungry and experiencing chemical imbalances due to hunger or mental health challenges that are also caused by chemical imbalances. And I'm so grateful to be sitting at this table and that we all are able to contribute to this. And Janina, could you think of anything else to add?
The last point was my suggestion. My name is Ursula Samuels. For those of you who don't know me, I've been a community activist for over 30 years, and I never support the police in some of the things they are doing. I'm tired of them harassing people. I'm not being racist, but a lot of people of color has been harassed in this city more than the white people. I can tell you that, and this is true. So let's stop living in denial. And today I'm here to say what happened to Councillor Matthew Green. I strongly support him. I'm happy that he took this in consideration and bringing this awareness to people in Hamilton, because this should never happen. And Matthew, I'm there with you. You see me at City Hall. You see me in the media. Stop harassing the youths. I'm here at Jackson Square Food Court every day. There are some youths coming about 8, 9 o'clock, and I don't see the security harassing the white youths. But as soon as those black youths come in, they start ordering them out the mall. And this is wrong. It needs to be stopped. And I will never give up my fight. And I will never see the police in all these wrongdoings. They need to get that sensitivity training and do their job properly. If not, get other people on the job. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we talked a little bit about the fact that the regulation that's in place has a lot of ways to circumvent it, which defeats the purpose. We talked about how there are already laws in place that are stronger than this, that underscore basic human rights that should be enforced, rather than pursuing this regulation that doesn't have teeth in the way that the Charter of Rights and Freedoms does, for instance. We talked about legislation or education, and how, although it's important to do anti-oppressive work and to train people, that still doesn't get at the internal issues and the internal racism that a lot of people have. So how do we find a way to do education that's meaningful, while just not giving people progressive language to hide the fact that they're racist? We talked about the fact that even if we teach people to know their rights, how, if you're not in a position of power, do you actually have the ability to forcefully ask for the things that you're entitled to? For instance, a lot of people may know that you should be getting a receipt. If you're not getting one and you're not in a position of power, how comfortable do you feel asking for it without it being interpreted as being aggressive or combative, and having that actually further and escalate the violence that you may be facing? We talked about having officers specific to neighborhoods to possibly build relationship, and the lack of communication with community and actually teaching them what their rights are. We talked about, again, the regulation not working because it doesn't have teeth, and how reformation of a regulation that isn't working maybe isn't the best path to go through, because we may just find ourselves in this situation again. And a little point that I'll add, I think in this discussion, it's really important for white folks to take a back seat, because we're not impacted by card checks in the way that racialized and Indigenous folks are, and actually just listening to the suggestions that other folks in the room are giving us, rather than imposing our own views when they don't actually reflect negative experiences with police.
Thank you.
Sorry, another white woman. We have like 5 pages of notes, but I think what our, okay.
And you have time, so we can take everybody, we are racing, so we can slow it down a minute, right? Thank you, and thank you for being concerned about the time. I so appreciate it, but you have some time, so do your thing, yeah.
First, I think in our discussion, it was stated that street checks and carding is just one tool that can be used by the police, and it seems that perhaps it's being overused in place of better policing techniques and investigative techniques. So that might be an area to explore. It also seems like there is or may be a lack of knowledge about rights and responsibilities, sort of particularly like the rights of community members when being stopped or being carded, and the rights of the police in sharing or saying that you don't need to provide your information and whatnot, and what is in the regulation. So there needs to be more awareness about rights and responsibilities of both community members and police officers. There seems to be a need for a lot more accountability, but we thought that the giving out of receipts might be a good first step, because then you have a police officer's name, you have their badge number, and you might be able to follow up on that, and you have that information at your fingertips. And I think it was also said a lot in our discussion that there needs to be a lot more trust between community members and police officers, and perhaps there needs to be like police officers more like assigned to a community and there, and get to know the community members and more be seen like on their side, and looking out for that community as opposed to being maybe more like interrogative or what's another way of saying it? But yeah, be more partners with the community, I think, is what was being said. Is there anything else to add from your table?
So just along the lines of training, we feel that additional training throughout the police force will help hold them accountable to those actions. If we don't have a top-down approach where this is being filtered from the very top all the way down to the individuals on the street, this will not work. Providing additional training to the police officers will help us build that bridge that we need to come together as a community. The accountability portion is so key that it is enforced from the top down. Right now, we believe that one of our individuals at the table, this is about trust. And at this point, we do not trust the police department to do the right thing. So having the accountability from the top down will help bridge that gap between ourselves and the community.
Ashley, thank you. Thank you. Another table? That table's good?
We have Micaiah and his brother Emmanuel. Pardon me? Micaiah, yeah, okay. And here's the younger generation. We went through all the questions, and he's going to answer them in order, okay?
Thank you.
So we've asked our table, have we all heard of carding? And yes, we have. It hasn't been enforced lately, but we've heard of it. And we've also been asked, what does street checks / carding mean to us? Well, it means that if you look suspicious or are doing something suspicious, the police can come up to you and ask you your whereabouts and what you're doing. It does not mean that if you're minding your own business, they can come up to you a little aggressive or out of the blue and just ask you for your information. It also does not mean that they don't tell you your rights and just give you the permission to talk back to them. People here feel like they're unsafe or they don't have their rights to walk away or just go back into the crowd because they feel like the police will either harass them or arrest them. Another major concern is the police in the neighborhood. It's question 6. When should police stop and talk to people in the community? They should only talk to you if there's suspicious behavior or activity, and if anything else, they can ask you for your information. But people are only willing to do that if you're either friendly, chatting to them, or more common in the neighborhood. People will not talk to you if you're rude or you look like you're not going to be friendly to them. It would be beneficial for the police to interact with the neighborhoods and get common ground and know all the citizens that live there. We also feel that this carding has not been beneficial to the neighborhood. It has put out either a racial thing or a group thing. So they have only been targeting select groups and not just talking to everyone. We also feel that with the government having all this money and power, have not been promoting this legislation more often. They promote gun violence and all that through TV commercials and radios, but this legislation, they keep it on paper, they talk about it quietly, and it doesn't have any effect because when you get a receipt, what are you supposed to do? Are you supposed to call them? And when you call them, will it go to answer machine? Will they bring you to different operatives? It doesn't do anything because then people get frustrated and they just hang up. But when they give you a receipt, you should be able to go there immediately or have people waiting for your questions and answer them properly.
Wait, Dave, let him hold the mic for one more second for a sec. Are you the president of your school?
No.
Okay, you need to be the president of your school. I also want to acknowledge that at that table was a member of Hamilton Police. And so I want people to just note that this conversation can happen in this way, where I think this young man might feel like he spoke his truth, and the police were at the table at the same time, so, yeah. Police Services Board, pardon me, a member of the Hamilton Police Services Board. slightly different. Should I tell them that it's public? Let's leave it. Thank you. Thanks, Dave.
Okay. Hi, good evening. I think all of us at our table were really happy to be here and to have open discussions. There were three themes that really stood out to us as we were talking. The first was that the most vulnerable in our community don't know what they need to know, or they don't know what they don't know. It felt like this table was saying that all the information is at the top and it's not trickling down. It's like an opposite pyramid. Number two, we said that the police should be involved in not just violence, harassment, all of the negative interactions that we see on YouTube and social media, but that they should also be involved in good community interaction. So being present in schools, being available for questions, being involved in local community activities, not just for carding people or, I guess, just causing commotion. And then our last one was about getting participants involved, like students at McMaster and other schools, to create public service announcements so that we know our rights, so that the community is involved, so that it's relevant, it's current, it's knowledgeable, but also that it's accessible. So not just having it on a website or a random piece of paper or talked about behind closed doors, but it's on social media. It's available on Snapchat. It's available on Facebook, where people can see it, where it's free for people to see it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, Your Honor, and good evening, Madam Chair. So, Anna and I were essentially alone at this table, and we didn't come up with anything especially profound. We just had a quiet, laid-back conversation. But a woman at a table previously said at the beginning of her remarks, "Sorry, another white woman." I think that remark is unnecessary, because this is a public event that was well advertised in my experience, and anybody in this room who's descended from Europe is equal to anybody descended from any other continent in the world. So I reject that thinking that somehow I'm a guest in this room, and the room is actually intended for people coming from other parts of the world. That's not really the
You know that was a white woman.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
We're just checking.
It's unnecessary for her to make that remark, as if she needs to apologize for having European antecedents. Otherwise, I have nothing else to say. And Anna, do you have something?
Yeah. So I'll just okay. Thank you. It's fine. Sorry. Go ahead, ma'am. You have the floor.
I think we need more guidelines about this law, because not everyone knows about it, and it can be threatening on some circumstances. Individuals and police should identify themselves, and more training would help.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So who has the mic, Dave?
Their deputant isn't back yet, so just...
Oh, okay, no problem. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. So some of the key points that we brought out were, one of them was to have something like a 911 number for assistance, that anyone across Canada, the province would be able to call in and have some assistance. It will give them assistance with next steps. It will give them assistance with just debriefing and unpacking, what their experience was, if they need further supports to try to help them through with the experience, things along those lines. Also, we also made some recommendations around PDSAs and advertising, that it would be a lot broader. So whether they be, marquees on different television broadcasts and the subways, on the on the buses, things like that, bus shelters, that it would become. So sorry. That, basically anywhere people turn, they would have access to that information. Regarding the receipts for the carding, it would be nice, it would be even double-sided. So on one side is whatever information that the police need to gather, but the other side would show the individual who's now had this interaction and been officially carded, that they would know what their rights and responsibilities might be through this interaction as well. So it sort of levels the power a little bit more. I think it's also important to realize that you cannot make any headway without collaboration. We can't do this in a bubble. Neither can the police services or any other stakeholder. That we really need to all be able to come to the table and have these difficult discussions and be willing to give up ground to make ground. Also, at one point in time, I can recall that community policing used to mean community policing, that there was, again, this interaction and a real coming together of community with policing. And somehow or another, that has eroded over time. And I think that if we go back to the roots of that will help us through this process in making headway in the future. Someone also brought up the point of maybe having body cams. So I know when, say, if I'm calling in to even talk to my financial advisor about something, you call a 1-800 number and they tell you that it's going to be recorded. And they so maybe there needs to be some sort of record other than just on paper, that there's a recording of this interaction so that you're really going to hear both sides of what exactly happened. In terms of a database, it'd be nice to have a database for the interaction from the person who's been carded, as well as the police officer who is making this, who is issuing this
doing the
carding, going through the process, and then there would be some sort of random sampling to see, okay, this incident happened on such and such a day. This is what the person said. This is what the officer said. And if there's a lot of if there's not a lot of connection between the two stories, then I think that would be a way to measure really how effective this process is and whether it should be. We know it should be abolished, but they will then have to be able to defend on a greater degree why it is that they need to keep this, because all evidence is showing that it's not working and it's not meeting the purpose for which they said it needs to be kept in place. And
20 seconds.
I think that's just about it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Okay. So our table had some good discussion. We went through all the questions. I'm not going to repeat what everybody else in the room has already said. I'll try to, pick out the things that were different. I've been to a few of these consultations already, and something that was really surprising to me at this discussion, this gentleman right here, sorry, what's your name again? Kirk. Kirk had some experiences with the police when he was a teenager. And as we can all see, Kirk is a white male, supposed to be the best, the best thing in America, whatever. But he had a lot of bad experiences with the police when he was younger, just based on how he looked. And you would think, what do you mean? Like, he's a white male, but he was into punk rock. So just based on his dressing and his hair, they would harass him a lot. And like, what were you saying? Like, put you up against a wall. You have to pull your pants down for a search, all this kind of stuff. So that was very shocking to me, because usually we hear about this stuff for, you know, young black males specifically. He made a good statement around that. You know, the experiences that he had while he was a youth, I guess they stayed with him until, you know, he was an adult, and still till this day. So he kind of has a chip on his shoulder when it comes to police, which possibly he may not have had if he didn't have these experiences as a youth. Let me see. For question number 2, because I have like a lot of random words here. What do street checks mean to you? Some things that our table spit out was like oppressive, targeted, assumption based on appearance, the police are bullies or on a power trip, and the public does not trust them. Table, anything else that I missed?
Oppressive's a good word. I know in my personal experience, it was routine. It was routine for me to be hassled, targeted, pulled up on. I knew that my experiences at the time, that my rights were being violated, but I felt very helpless. And that, you know, we discussed this as well. What are you supposed to do? Go to the police? To complain about the police, you know, and I think, sorry? You complain against what your local police by going to the Interpol. I made that here. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, sir. Thank you.
So
Keep going, sir.
I've been coming to now because I've needed to feel empowered, and I thank Chair Lady and Justice Tulloch.
Yeah, Justice Tulloch.
I was here at the. I've been here for, I think, probably about a half dozen of these meetings now. And I felt it necessary just for myself, for my own sense of well-being, that I had to do something to fight back, to feel empowered, because that's how the police have made me feel, is disempowered. And I thank you very much. I've received Justice Tulloch's report. It's long. I've got it on my computer, and I've probably read about 2/3 of it, and I agree with the large percentage of it.
Sir, I'm going to just ask you to wrap it up, but thank you.
Okay.
Is that okay? And just to clarify, you're talking about the Justice Tulloch's review of the police review of the
Yeah,
police
I'm
review
glad that
body.
something is being done finally.
Yeah.
Because this, you know, my experience is I'm going back to the early 80s now.
Yeah.
When I was a teenager, young man. And I relate very much to people of ethnicity who have been targeted and feel disempowered and disenfranchised by the police, because I feel exactly the same way. And that I'm trying very hard to change my impression. I'm cognizant of the fact that hate doesn't get me anywhere, it just eats at me. But this is a process. And I'm glad to see something, that it's finally being addressed.
Awesome.
That, you know, I have a voice that I hope is being listened to. And thanks.
You do. Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, everybody's doing, okay. This is interesting.
We are all high school students, and all of us have been stopped by police for no reason, and no charges have ever been laid. So what's the point of pulling us over if we never committed a crime?
I have been
I have been stopped for so many times, and they're just asking me for like getting my IDs and my name or informations, and I haven't been given to them my IDs or informations. And after another day, they just came to me to my school, and they're just asking me for, like, I did something, and they don't have any proof on me. So they just took my phone for no reason for like 4 hours, and they just told me like, they don't have any proof on me. And the first time they just told me like they had a video of me or doing something. Then after, they didn't call me after that. Like, what's the point for getting that?
Thank you.
Brothers and sisters, I'm not going to talk very long because truthfully, sitting with these young brothers was really the whole purpose, I think, why Justice Tulloch is here. They are the majority of the targets for this carding. And what we've heard so far is every single one of them have been targets of the police for no reason. None of them have criminal records. None of them have ever actually been spoken to by the police because of any reasonable, probable grounds. One boy even had his property seized and searched for over 4 hours and returned to him like it was normal. You know, this problem is very severe. One of the things that we also recognize, they're all high school students, but their knowledge about the Charter of Rights and Freedom was very small. But this is not really what our nation should be based on. And so I just want to tell you Kings, I'm very happy and I'm thankful for you sharing this, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Hopefully you'll continue to stand beside each other like you did. That was nice when you all stood up. Thanks for doing that.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
A lot of what we have talked about has already been said, but I wanted to add 2 points. One was around the culture change that needs to happen within policing. And it's been spoken to already before about the community aspect and what it means to protect but also serve a community. And I think that at our table we talked about a lot about how police act on and off duty and how do they build those relationships? How do they get to know community? Well, one, you live in the community. How many of our police officers actually live in our Hamilton community? Two, when you're not in uniform, how are you interacting? How are you building relationships? How are you getting to know your community and support them? That's really important. I guess the other thing, we had some difficulty with some of the questions around training because we don't really understand what the training would look like. We need to know more specifics about the training because it would be very easy for police officers to do something that looks like compliance on this regulation. Yes, I've read it. Yes, I've talked about it. Yes, I've answered some questions on it. And I can check off that I've done this module out of my 16, and I get my pay raise, and away I go. But what does that do to change attitudes? What does that do to change mindsets? It doesn't. What does change things like that are the ongoing conversations, are the relationship building, are the leadership from the top down, like has already been said, having these conversations with officers at every level. We also said that the accountability is very, very important. And maybe that accountability is not just tied to pay or tied to discipline, but also tied to you answer to the community that you serve. And what does that look like? Because all of us here need to have a voice when things like what happened to Matthew Green happen. And if we don't speak up about it, who will? And we're not confident that a receipt or a documentation or a database will actually shift any attitudes or mindsets, or actually will empower the people who this regulation is supposed to protect and serve.
Thank you. You did that table already? Yeah. Thank you.
Hi. Hi. Thanks
Hi.
for putting this together. Very informative, very necessary. My name is Halima Al-Hatimi. Last year, I was actually, I should say that I got permission from my table to use my story to contextualize what I'm going to say.
Thank you for that.
Last year, I was a student in the Masters of Public Health program at McMaster University, and I was doing a collaborative graduate diploma program with the United Nations Water Without Borders program. Recently, McMaster University instituted a ban on smoking, which would include the inhalation of medical cannabis. I'm a medical cannabis user, and I'm a medical cannabis advocate. So they would be banning a route of medical cannabis administration known as inhalation off campus property. If I need to medicate, because that's the most effective route for a lot of people to deal with pain and flashbacks or anxiety from PTSD, they would have to walk off campus, and violations would result in penalties. So I organized a protest along with other Caucasian medical cannabis advocates in the city. We organized a protest on campus. The campus police showed up and aggressively disrupted a non-violent protest, which was very educational. They disrupted it and came in. Now, what was interesting when they arrived is that they came straight to me. I was surrounded by white activists who were involved in organizing the protest, but they came straight to me. When the special constable arrived, he also came straight to me. I refused to give them my identification when they asked me for ID. I told them I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm peacefully protesting. I haven't hurt anyone or incited anyone to violence. Therefore, I have the right to refuse to present you with identification. So I refused to present it to them. They went and carted the white man beside me. Well, he gave them his ID, but that's his business. The next time we organized a protest about a month later in the Health Sciences cafeteria, which is joint with the Health Sciences Hospital. Campus security arrived. There was a man swearing at me in the cafeteria, telling me to sit the down, shut the up, nobody wants to hear what you have to say. When security arrived, they escorted me off campus property, and they followed us all the way out of the building, me and all the other activists that were there. And before they did that, though, one of my co-organizers, who was a white man, was standing right in front of him and said to him, with all due respect, we don't have to leave the hospital property, and we don't have to ask for permits. And the security guard told him that we have to leave because it's private property. And they turned and carted me first, again. And I was further away from him than the white man that was right in front of him. So I filed an application with the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario for 3 accounts of racially motivated carting and 1 account of police intimidation and harassment. Because after that, I saw the special constable on campus, and he came to me and informed me and showed me pictures of me that he has on his phone. And then on top of that, he told me that he follows my nonviolent political activity on the Silhouette, and he has read about me on the news. I have been very public about this on my Facebook and have received absolutely no support from the community so far. So my question now is, what is the point of this legislation when we don't, if we're political dissenters, nonviolent political dissenters, are trying to advocate for our medication not to be banned off campus property because I don't want to have to be in pain and I don't want my academic performance to be disrupted, but they can send their police to intimidate me and escort me off campus. So how does this legislation apply then to private institutions that are administering public services? That's not clear.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Last table? Oh, so, sorry. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Hold on. Sorry, I didn't make it clear before. We don't answer questions because...
You didn't say anything in response. You answered everybody else, but didn't say anything in response to what I just said.
What? I'm sorry. I'm not understanding. You asked a very specific question, and we don't answer questions. If you notice, I never answered anybody's...
But you didn't answer
They didn't ask questions. I said thank you.
And that's it. So we're not going to have a dialogue about that because we had a dialogue about.
Is there, if you have something to dialogue about, but I heard you ask a question and we don't answer questions. So that's how this works. We can't actually. Right. No, you guys had your dialogues at the table, and then you share with us, and then we say thank you. Thank you. Done? Thank you so much. Actually, Mr. Sheikh, we had made arrangements to have him 3 minutes. 3. Let's go with 3. Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, sir. Mhm. Okay. 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 Thank you.
Your Honor, last time when you presented, quote, police are people, people are police. With that phraseology, Your Honor, I appeal to you something. It shouldn't be singular, not recommendation. It should be recommendation and implementation. With that one, Your Honor, I say, first, your recommendation and implementation ought to contain minority ratio in the Police Services Board, and we don't have a single minority in the senior command. That should change with your guidance and implementation that comes to. That eliminates that. That leads to Section 31. Hamilton Police Services Board is the only services board do not have any policy. We have a vice chairman of the board here. I directly say those. Why I say that one, Hamilton Police Board is not unified. It is divisive. That's why you must recommend and implement all across Ontario. Police Act applies all across Ontario. Yet they practice differently each police board. That's number one. Give you an example. Hamilton Police Services Board has a lawyer coming from Ottawa to give advice. We have in Hamilton 537,000 people. We have well-reputed police service law firm. Why can't we have that? That's one. And that leads to Section 39. I have been fighting years and years. Last time I submitted extensively Police Act, particularly Section 39, budgeting. It's all related to the carding. We must define Section 39. You say, Section 39 say, current operating budget should be submitted separately to the city council. Capital budget should be separate. Yet, Your Honor, Hamilton Police Board continuously presenting capital financing in their current operating budget. In the accounting terminology, they don't have expenditure. They charge directly to the bank account. That's a violation of accounting 101. And I've been talking to them, they don't listen to me. Okay. It's very important. And they should stop. Another case example. They have, because we don't have minority ratio, they take, for example, Your Honor, Hamilton Police Board had action team. They issue tickets for every Tom, Dick, and Harry. That quota system ought to eliminate. Your Honor, it's a pleasure talking to you. I hope you consider these things to eliminate the budgeting and Section 31. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who came out tonight. I just want to remind you of the online option to submit everything that you said, all of what everyone has said, has been recorded and is available for our review. So thank you again. Please tell a friend, and if you know people that weren't here tonight that have something to say, please encourage them to see us online. Okay? Thank you so much. Thanks again. Have a great night.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I just want you to all know that we listened very carefully to all of your submissions. I also listened to the questions that were posed. And we're not in a position, like I said earlier, to engage in any kind of answer question sessions. But everything that you've said is being noted. And the point that that young lady made, I clearly understand it. And, you know, I think your point is that, you know, this regulation, the way it's written, it's not applicable to private institutions such as McMaster's. And your position is, you know, a lot of the university police services, they're in effect acting as deputized police officers. And so, right. I understand. So I think I understand what you're saying, right? And it's a much bigger issue than, no, I understand. It's a bigger issue than any one university. It's exactly the same issues at all the universities, right? And I think that that's something that I will absolutely consider. Okay, so I hear you all. Everything that you said, I've been making note of and listening. And it will be considered in my recommendations. Okay, so I want to thank you for taking the time to come out. Your time here was not wasted. We appreciate the engagement. It's only through this engagement that we can have better systems that not only govern us, but govern, you know, the police services as well. So thanks again, and I look forward to, you know, continued dialogue with all of you. Thank you.